Hello, Nari McDiarmid for Mining Journal and miningnews.net, and it's great to speak again with PolarX Managing Director Dr Jason Berton. And Jason, you've recently announced some high-grade copper results from your Alaska Range project in the US. What are the standouts here?
Well, Nari, the standouts are pretty much the grade. These are very high grade copper intervals, and we followed up high grade copper intervals that we drilled in 2021. So in 2021, we drilled 19.1 meters at 7% copper and 11.2 grams per ton silver. So we've focused on that area once again, and the best intercept that we reported last week was 15.5 meters at 7.4% copper and 21.4 grams of silver.
So, why did you choose to focus drilling on that particular zone?
Well, the mineralization starts from surface in this area. It's high grade, and it's the obvious place to focus on for when we hope to eventually turn this into a mining operation. So the first place you would start mining is the highest grade from surface, which will give you the quickest return. So that was really the driver behind that. And if you're going to focus on that zone, you really want to understand the structural setting as well, which is why we oriented all the time in core. So it's important to really tie down those structures as we take it deeper and deeper to help us target the ore body.
Well, when you mention high grade, it's interesting to note actually that, the largest copper mine in the world, Escondida, is mining at less than 1% copper these days, and you're drilling results with more than 7%. And I noticed that Caribou Dome, part of Alaska Range, it's already got a resource of 7.2 million tonnes, grading 3.1% copper. So, what do these latest intercepts mean for the project?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the high grades are obviously welcome, and they're well above our average resource grade of 3.1%. And we'll continue to focus on the higher grade zones of the ore body because as I said before, they're the obvious place to start a mining operation. And if we drill further into those high grade zones and extend them, then there's potential to significantly improve the overall average grade of the resource. Now, the high grade nature of the deposit means you don't actually need to have as many tons to make it a viable economic mining operation as well. So that's one of the advantages you've got over some of these larger, lower grade deposits where we won't have the burden of as much capex as what they would have.
Now, this drilling you've just completed was thanks to a placement that was backed by your major shareholder, Northern Star Resources. Do you have further exploration planned?
Yes, we do. And firstly, I'd like to thank Northern Star for their continued support on PolarX with its exploration, particularly in such a weak ASX market that we've been enduring. And like us, they see the importance of advancing projects down the production pipeline, despite the equity markets being weak. Now, this especially makes sense because copper and gold prices are very high right now, and mining continues to happen during these high commodity prices, but it's very difficult for exploration companies to advance their projects when the equity markets are so weak. So support from a major such as Northern Star is really key to us progressing and reaching our eventual production goal for the projects. Now, as far as further updates to the market, we've got another 2 holes to report assays beneath holes 2 and 3 that were reported last week. The system's open at depth as well, so we're taking it further. And we're also currently modelling all the structural data across the Alaska Range project, which includes the work we've recently done at Caribou, but also the oriented diamond core we've drilled historically at Exactly. And the great thing about the oriented core is once you have it, you can always revisit it. And at this point, further developing that structural model is perhaps the most important tool for further exploration targeting throughout the entire project. And that's ongoing work for targeting for next season. And also to complement that, we'd like to have higher resolution magnetic data over Caribou Dome as it approaches Senator. So if we cover those prospects with higher resolution mag data that we can do even while there's snow on the ground, it doesn't affect that. So that will help us build a better targeting model. Also, whilst we're at that, we'll retrieve more diamond core from the historical holes we've drilled exactly that we've got stored off site, so that we can work on the metallurgy to achieve better gold recoveries than what we've currently got in the scoping study, which is sitting around 70%. So there's quite a bit of scope for improving the gold recovery, because we know the gold that is outside that 70% is coarse grain. So we're quite optimistic about how much better we can make that, and then the improvement that is likely to make to the scoping study as well.
Well, Jason, finally, you did mention the strong support that PolarX has from Northern Star, but for a potential investor, why should they consider PolarX?
That's a good question, Nari. But we have potential for very significant upside in what I think are the two best metals markets of copper and gold. I think there's less risk in copper and gold compared to other metal markets, and I attribute that to the massive scale of the copper and gold markets and the transparencies that you get from these markets. Copper and gold also lack metal substitutes and other disruptions that you may have seen emerge in some of the other metal markets lately. So on the metals markets front, that's why I prefer copper and gold. But the project level with PolarX, our projects are high quality and they've got scalable upside from future exploration success, and they lie within very investable mining jurisdictions. We've also demonstrated several times now that we have a good relationship with Northern Star, and as they continue to invest in PolarX, I don't think there's many other juniors that are in our position that cover the right metals, the right markets, and the right jurisdictions, and the right major support.
It's a good mix. Jason, thank you very much for taking the time to speak today.
Thanks, Nari. Much appreciated.